On the programme, for those of you who saw it, you had me down as speaking for 15 minutes on the history of veganism. You can't really do much in 15 minutes, but just very briefly, the word vegan was invented in 1944 in England, and it was used to launch the first vegan society. That society is still very much alive today. And we have the chief executive has come all the way over from England to speak to you for 30 minutes, to tell you all about the Vegan Society and what it's doing today. If you really want to know about the history, go to ivu.org, click on history, and you'll find loads of stuff I've written on there, and you can get it on there. So I'd like to introduce Jasmijn, originally from the Netherlands, but now running the original Vegan Society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I'm just going to start up the laptop and stand over here. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation to this Congress. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background about the Vegan Society, and I hope to show you a very brief video clip of 1.5 minutes, depending on the sound system. Hope it will work. So first of all, I'm going to talk a bit about the Vegan Society, the original Vegan Society, then our Vegan Pledge scheme, followed by campaigning for change, human behavior change, and why that's important to acknowledge, evidence-based interventions, and the need for research. And I hope to have a little bit of time left for discussion. As John mentioned, we are an educational charity that promotes and supports the vegan lifestyle. And it was actually, we define veganism as a way of living that seeks to exclude, as far as possible and practical, all forms of exploitation. Oh, okay.
This is clicking forward.
Okay, all right, cheers. I think that's okay.
Yeah, just continue. Oh boy.
It's because
Maybe
it's
it's
a
not
Mac.
going to work on yours. Just thought it might be a little easier for you if you didn't have to.
Which one do I need? Shift?
Let's see. Yeah, we might not be able to do it. I thought it would just make your presentation a little easier.
I don't mind using it. Sorry about that. Thanks for. So basically, our definition is a way of living that seeks to exclude, as far as possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, and any other purpose. So we're not going to be very difficult about it. It's actually as far as possible and practicable. And the society was formed in 1944, as John mentioned, by a group of vegetarians in the UK who recognised that the ethical compromising of eating eggs and dairy products were no longer in keeping with their beliefs about animals. So Donald Watson and his wife coined the term veganism. And since then, the society has inspired many similar societies worldwide. The society aims to make veganism an easily adopted and widely recognised approach to reducing animal and human suffering and environmental damage by means of a meaningful, peaceful and factual dialogue with individuals and organisations. Basically, I'm going too fast. Our vision is a world in which humans do not exploit animals, and in order to achieve that, people should eventually desire that all exploitation and cruelty to other animals end, and that respect for all life should be increased. So we've identified 2 long-term outcomes to achieve that, and one focuses on the public and private sector, demonstrating that they've improved their knowledge, practice and attitudes in vegan catering, manufacturing, agriculture, and supporting sustainable and rewarding sustainable lifestyles. At the same time, we're focusing on individuals, increasing the number of people going vegan, sustaining vegan lifestyles, based on a number of reasons, but including respect for animals, justice, environmental concerns, and belief that a balanced vegan nutrition is healthy. sometimes you need to still overcome hurdles that people think it's not quite healthy. Well, in this conference we've heard that it can be done. In fact, it's actually one of the most healthy diets around. So I'm not going to talk about the nutritional benefits. The vegan pledge scheme is something where this is basically one of the main reasons for me to be here, because we run this scheme whereby people can choose 1 week, 2 weeks or a month of pledging to go vegan. We didn't invent it. It was originally done by Neil Lee and then taken on by London vegan campaigns many years ago, and then we adapted it to become an online support system. And again, there are lots of vegan pledge schemes around the world at the moment, but this is a very successful scheme. We actually have over 250, 300 people a month signing up, either selecting to have a mentor or not, and they're being supported throughout. So we do a pledge questionnaire before and after the scheme, and we found that more than half of the participants are actually from the USA and Canada. So I thought it was important to be here to actually connect with people and also learn about what's going on here and what the issues are. So I've got some data about the pledge results so far. Basically, in the last 2 years, nearly 5,000 people took the pledge, and 58 out of 932 completed the pledge questionnaire, stating that they intended to stay vegan. Typically, over 40% of the pledgers are from the USA. Majority prefer mentor, and we found that is something they really appreciate because they're being supported. They can ask any questions. People often feel a bit isolated and lonely, but by having a mentor or by having access to other vegans trying this, they are actually feeling supported, and that's really important in terms of human behavior change. The main reasons are health, animal rights, progression and environment, and it's in this order because we found that there's a big difference between the UK and the US. For the majority of the US participants, it's health reasons, whereas for the majority of the UK pledgers, it's animal rights. There's a big difference in motivation.
Put the microphone closer to you.
Okay, sorry about that. We are currently analysing the expectations and the experiences in more detail. So here's some results from the first quarter of this year, where you can see the difference in health, animal rights, environmental reasons over the months. The post-pledge questionnaire is not always returned, but then you can't always get a return. But if you can look at the results, you will find that most of the people who do return it are staying vegan or intending to mostly stay vegan. So we find that being supportive, giving them lots of information, references to other organizations, details of where to find recipes, whatever they need, helps in transitioning to that vegan diet and sustaining it. So I have some questions for you to ponder during my presentation, which is, how would you link the vegan pledge scheme to your own understanding of human behavior change? And what improvements would you suggest? And how would you suggest taking it to the next level? For example, a franchise model, securing government funding, rolling it out to other organizations, to local authorities. What we've done recently was to develop a new website called guidetoveganliving.org.uk, which is based on people's real experiences of taking the pledge. So if they had a problem, for example, with socializing or eating out or being accepted by friends, we put this website together, which is a frequently asked question website in a sense, giving all this information and where to find more. But it's based on real experiences. Campaigning for change to promote veganism can be aimed at various levels. Attitudes, citizen behavior, for example, supply and demand and social acceptance. Private and public sector practice. And policy regulations and guidelines, including local, national and international, and finally legislation. In this presentation I will focus more on the citizen behavior change, but we're also looking at lobbying and working with MPs in Parliament. This has already been mentioned by others before. I think it was Michael Weber who mentioned the alert, discussion and reform 3 stages of change. This is similar in a sense. It's attention, interest, desire and action. So people have strong beliefs, they need to be connected to a desire, and that will lead to taking action, and it's a positive loop. So what we've done is rebrand a lot of our materials to make it more positive. We want to appeal to people's natural compassion. People always say they are compassionate, they like animals, they care for animals, and we want to tap into that. And then if they really care, what does that mean? That means taking it to the next step. So change may be the result of public pressure and political will. It could also be because of exposés or the threat of exposure, legal action, and some forms of legal direct action. It could also be constructive dialogue and negotiation. And finally, economic incentives and popular choice or consumer demand. I'll go into detail a little bit more later on. There we go. But we need to understand this success is actually measured by the outcome of activities, not by the activities themselves. So, for example, if you say 1,000 demonstrators protested against animal use in labs, that's great, but what was the result? Did that lab shut down? No, usually not. The number of talks given, again, is an indicator. A number of letters published, an indicator, but are not actually the success or the change in themselves. So what we are trying to do is trying to measure our impact of our work. I just want to put these kind of methods on there to make you think about what is effective. Are some methods more effective than others? And why is that? And why is it that some methods are not very effective and take up a lot of time? What should we be doing? We have limited time. What should we be focusing on? It could be different for different campaigns, it could be different for different countries, but it is something we need to think about when we campaign. We also know that negative exhortative tactics are usually ineffective for large-scale social change. There may be some civil disobedience, but actually being negative is not really going to result in any positive change. So usually what we see is there are two levels to achieve that kind of change. The individual, household and community behavior change based on attracting people towards veganism with positive messages, values, feelings and experiences, and changing the environment, making it easier, making it more accepted, to making veganism seem more normal and taken for granted. So this is one example. The Vegan Society produces the Veg One tablet, and that was born out of need that a lot of vegetarians and vegans have a vitamin B12 deficiency. Now you can get that from fortified foods, obviously, but if you want to be sure, if you want to make sure you get the right amount, then just taking these tablets will help. And it's produced at low cost because we are a charity. But it's making it available, making it easy. Another example is our logo, which is a worldwide recognized logo on many products that we've certified vegan. And that's becoming more and more mainstream as well. When we get new people coming into our office, we ask, what do you think? Have you heard of veganism? And they usually say, yeah, we can see this logo on more products now. So it's actually going to... Sorry about the noise. In terms of human behavior change, the question is, how can you get a lazy person like that to become someone who climbs the top of Mont Blanc? What are the motivations behind it? So there's external factors and internal factors, socio-economic, political, cultural factors, physical environment, class, peer, media, etc. And I'll come back to some of these a bit later on. But there are also internal factors like experience, attitudes, beliefs, and motivation. We need to understand the perceptions of non-vegans, by Melanie Joy termed carnists, to know what we need to do in order to convince them to become vegan, or at least towards veganism. So what we know is that most people are speciesists to a certain degree and believe that non-human animals are less worthy of considerations than humans. And there may be cognitive dissonance, which means that people don't reconcile their actions with their beliefs. And they may justify eating animals by praising the taste and tradition, raising practical objections, downplaying animal sentience. They also believe that zoos are educational, animal testing a necessary evil, and so on. All sorts of reasons to justify their behavior. And it's also mentioned before in this conference that eating animal products is associated with status, belonging to a developed society, and being accepted. There is a disconnect between consumers and concerned citizens. Some studies have shown that there is a willingness to pay for higher welfare products, like free-range eggs, but in practice, the poor economic situation at the moment and pressures mean that people often buy products that are cheaper and are not actually sustainable. And some studies showed from the Department of Food and Rural Affairs in England that 70% of people say that buying sustainable fish is important, but only 30% say that they do so. And these are still self-reported, so in fact it may even be lower. Another study said that there is concern for the environment, but people are least willing to change their diets to decrease the carbon emissions. They want to do all sorts of other things like recycling, etc. That they don't find that difficult, but changing their diet is a major obstacle for people. And also the availability of non-animal products may be limited in mainstream supermarkets. Now this is starting to change in the UK. A lot more products are becoming available in mainstream supermarkets, and I'm sure that's the same here in the US. But we still need to go some way. And then there's people who don't understand the ingredients, and that can be difficult and that can be off-putting. So we need to help people to read the label and learn what's on the label. It's actually not that difficult, but they just need a little bit of support. Oh, okay. A couple of more final things about human behavior change is that social rules are often conservative. Someone said today, I think it was Denbrook, the leaders are not actually leaders, they're actually followers. And that's quite true in many cases. But we also need to understand how we are perceived, animal rights or vegan advocates. We are often ignored, considered emotional, irrational, abused occasionally, even killed. That's very rare, but it has happened. And only sometimes treated sympathetically. And again, someone today said, I think it was Dr. Susanto, we need to use scientific evidence. That's our key, that's our power in order to change. But sometimes we need to conform to the norm to some extent to have some chance of being successful. And in order to achieve change, we need to be not too different from them. I don't want to say there is this dichotomy of we and them, but it's often being perceived by people who don't understand veganism, don't understand plant-based diets. So, for example, I've only recently taken up running, and we can show there's actually a growing group in the UK and internationally of vegan runners showing that vegan runners are just as successful as, if not more so, than non-vegan runners. Just a brief word about the media. The media have a huge impact on both in positive and in negative ways, and most stories will disappear unless it's a scandal and is repeated. But a study by Matthew Cole and Karen Morgan showed that the mass media perpetuates justification for the production of animals, consumption of animals, and veganism in about 70% of the cases is usually mentioned in a negative context. We need to break through that and we need to challenge that. But also we need to use the media in positive ways. And there are vegan messages becoming more and more prevalent, I think, in the media. We need to engage with media producers, with editors, getting it into local and national media. I think it would be good to use fun, cool, healthy, trendy messages that appeal to a large audience. What is it? That's the reference of the study if anyone's interested. The role of social media has been mentioned by other people in this conference. It helps people feel less isolated about their beliefs and about their choices, and it facilitates access to information. It allows rapid sharing of experiences and provides peer support. And these are key elements that come out of human psychology and behavior change. If people feel isolated, they may not stick with it, but if they know there's a network out there, then they will actually persist. And also, awareness of an interest in vegan issues can lead to online communities in uniting and taking action. However, there is still division, unfortunately, and certain groups use different tactics. There may be lack of respect for different approaches, and there could be militancy, which actually can cause more harm than good. And again, this was mentioned in one of the talks that the only opposition to Meatless Monday campaign was by other vegetarians, actually other vegans, who attacked that. I think that's not very helpful. We need to just all unite behind the common vision. So just want to show you 1.5 minute brief video clip that we produced earlier this year. I hope it's going to work. Just a second. Thank you. We hope that lots of people were going to the website to actually take up the pledge. Unfortunately, it was somewhat misinterpreted, and some existing vegans went to the website and pledged that they were vegan. we were trying to get new people to come on board. But anyway, it's been viewed over 14,000 times. It's available on the website, so if you like this, please do spread it and send it around to your contacts. So just coming back to that presentation. So just to wrap up the human behavior change, we've got possible methods that we can use. Choice architecture, I don't know if this is a term that's being used here in the US, but it's nudging people in the right direction, putting the fruit on the counter rather than the sweets, rather than telling them what to do. Incentives, using free handouts, that can work but can also create dependency. Capacity building, that's often a good method but very time consuming, like vegan cookery workshops actually modeling the behavior. And cognitive behavioral modification, where you model the behavior, you take people out shopping, you show them where everything is. That could be effective but quite time consuming. Social marketing can be powerful, but because of the people being bombarded with all sorts of campaigns and issues, that there's just too much information out there, it can be difficult. But one of the most sustainable ways to change people's behavior is participatory methods. And people learn by doing, and often the attitudes will follow behavior. It's not always the other way around. So if you get people to buy vegan food, to cook vegan food, to try it for one day, like the Meatless Monday campaigns, over time they will change their attitudes. And so they will take ownership of issues. They will prevent getting back into the old habits of buying animal products. They will be empowered, and eventually it will be more sustainable. So for example, the Vegan Pledge and Healthy Communities programs. If you're interested in this further, there are some really good books. This is not exhaustive at all, but there's a good book by Nick Cooney, Change of Heart, What Psychology Can Teach Us About Spreading Social Change. And there are a couple of environmental reports there as well. So my question to you is, we need to do more monitoring and evaluation of our work in order to be able to say that we've been successful. So I'd like to hear from you what your examples of successful campaigning are, and why that was successful in relation to your understanding of human behavior change, keeping in mind the difference between doing activities and actually knowing whether that has had any impact. And also the same questions that I asked earlier in the presentation. How would you link the Vegan Pledge scheme to your own understanding of behavior change? What improvements would you suggest? and how would you suggest taking it to the next level? So if you have any ideas, if you want to share any of your experiences, I would be grateful. And thank you very much for your attention. Is there time for questions?
No? I'm Ron Robbins speaking too. Thank you. Thank you very much. Gave us lots of ideas. And it's always nice to share all of the different things that our different groups are doing and how we can, help each other